Hey guys, so I'm still going to be using my current intro, but I'm going to be changing it once I get a new one, and I might even make an outro. So, yeah, please enjoy the old intro while you still can. Enjoy. Hey everyone, what's going on? So, I've been rebranding. I am now Joey Does Stuff, and this is going to be my first episode of Joey Reacts instead of Joe Talks doing a reaction video. So, yeah, anyways, I just saw this new Doki Doki Literature Club game theory, and the front cover, like the thumbnail, is a Monika with a third eye in the center. So I'm kind of assuming that they programmed a new Monika in after Monika must have escaped. If you watched the last Game Theory, go check that out. And yeah, I'm just gonna be watching this. The only reason it has red under it is because I clicked on it getting ready to record. So, yeah, be sure to subscribe to the Game Theorists and let's begin.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game!
Hang on. I feel like I should. Hang on. I feel like I should decode this, so. I'll be right back. You know what? Forget it. I'll go find out what it is later. If I can find out what the actual translator is. All we know is the answers you seek, Project Limitina, the simulation, Monik. We don't have much time. We have to save. Help me before the same thing happens to. Yeah.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's always vying to be best girl. Last episode, we went through all the new features of Doki Doki Literature Club Plus and began to unravel the mystery of the new company, Metaverse Enterprises. By looking at unlocked emails, hidden files, and the new side stories, we learned that not only was Doki Doki Literature Club a simulation created by Team Salvato, but that their universe, and by proxy our universe, may itself be a simulation in the world of these games. The biggest twist of all, though, came at the very end when we found clues suggesting that Monika had broken free from the game, ascending out of the simulation and inhabiting the body of senior engineer Ive Laster. So already that was a lot, but there was still one major thing that we didn't have time to talk about, and that was Virtual Machine 2, otherwise known as VM2, or perhaps
Project
most
Libitina.
infamously of all, Project Libitina. Now, this is something that we theorized about extensively back in the original 2017 theories, which, if you haven't watched, I highly recommend you go
They're
back
now
to, since they're some of my
age-locked.
favorite episodes we've ever done ever. Fun fact, they actually won us the Streamy Award for editing back in 2017. But outside of marveling at the amazing work of our editors, it's also information that's going to be helpful for everything that we're going to talk about today. Anyway, just to refresh you on the essentials so we're all on the same page, if you pursue Yuri as your romantic partner in the main game of Doki Doki, she describes the plot of the book that she's reading, The Portrait of Markov, a book which has an ominous-looking eye symbol on the front cover. In the first act, Yuri makes it sound relatively innocent. Quote, basically it's about this girl in high school who moves in with her long-lost younger sister, but as soon as she does so, her life gets really strange. She gets targeted by these people who escaped from a human experiment prison, and while her life is in danger, she needs to desperately choose who to trust. In the second act, she gives us even more information. Basically, it's about this religious camp that was turned into a human experiment prison. All the people trapped there have this trait that turns them into killing machines that lust for blood.
Yep,
but the
that's a
facility
creepy
gets
eye.
even worse, and they start selectively breeding people by cutting off their limbs and affixing them to, and then she cuts off. Great date conversation there, Yuri. 10 out of 10. Would date again. Through a series of coded messages in the original game, we learned that the
Good job, Yuri. You keep being creepy. Honestly, I know people are gonna say Monika or Sayori is best girl, but like Yuri's best girl for me.
Name of these human experiments was Project Libitina, and that the goal was to unlock something called a patient's third eye. The name itself, Libitina, appeared to be a reference to the names of one of the original test subjects, who, based on details from a medical spreadsheet found at projectlibitina.com, seemed to most closely match the physical details of Yuri herself. Hidden amongst all the documents, there were also references to a sick and suffering girl named Alyssa, as well as to an antagonistic character who seemed to be either a priest or doctor named Renier. Ultimately, we concluded that this was leading to the next game in the series, where we, or Monika disguised as someone, or whatever, would be tasked with saving the Doki Doki girls from these horrific experiments. Which brings us to today, 4 years later, and 4 years wiser, with a brand new series of clues hidden throughout DDLC+. So, let's just start with the basic facts. What does this new game tell us explicitly about Virtual Machine 2? Well, in the file Project Plan Outline, it's explicitly called out that VM1 is a small-scale project, a test case. The second, Virtual Machine 2, is designed to be a medium-scale simulation, and this lines up with what we already know. Doki Doki takes place essentially in a single classroom, small scale, whereas the Portrait of Markov is all about a religious medical facility, which would lend itself to having many more rooms and locations, probably a 3D environment. We also know, based on other documents, that Monika can indeed see her friends being tortured over in VM2. This is based on her monologue hidden in the original game, as well as from an email from Ravi in DDLC+. Quote, "My best guess is that the memory being freed from VM2 isn't getting zeroed out, which technically gives VM1 access to it." From there, most of the information about VM2 that we get is from project manager Paula, when she emails the rest of Team Salvato to discuss their plans moving forward. They intend to move away from VM1 and instead try to create stable access to VM2. Team Salvato's moving away from focusing on Doki Doki and instead working on this new game, Project Libitina. But so far, making a connection into this new virtual machine is something they've been unable to do. Paula seems to believe that they can build a connection into this new world thanks to an experiment that the simulation itself is running. Quote, "I have an idea on how to increase connection stability to VM2. I'll go into detail in a more formal report, but some of the log files indicate attempts of theirs to pull together the access potential of multiple individuals into a single parallel unit. It sounds ridiculous, but if they actually get somewhere with it, then we might have a solid entry point that doesn't heavily intrude upon the VM. The VM
So, hang on.
will just be named Test VM for now, although the parallel access unit they're building in the VM seems to be called Project Libitina." And
There it is. Also, the test VM thing can only be used on the PC version. The Switch and PS4 versions cannot run it.
there it is, ladies and gentlemen, Project Libitina in the flesh. Kinda, and there's a lot of flesh involved. Now, if you're a bit confused by what all of that means, hang on, we're about to break this wide open. You see, once you collect 100% of DDLC Plus's files, you unlock the final reward, Test VM, Paula's new name for Virtual Machine 2, the one that houses Libitina, which means that finally, after all the years of teasing and theorizing, we get our first glimpses into this new world, and it's a bunch of text.
Yeah, it's a bunch of text.
It's a text doc. We're welcomed by a black screen that shows us trying to connect to VM2. Remember, they still haven't come up with a stable connection to this world, which is why most of the text appears as random symbols. However, each time you boot things up, you see a fraction of text before losing the connection. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get a full sentence, other times it's just half a sentence, or two halves of different sentences. After hundreds and hundreds of reboots, online DDLC fans have collected.
Oh yeah, I was about to bring that up. So, I watched a video of Bijou Mike playing this game, and apparently he also found the doc full of all the sentences. So, let's take a listen.
All the pieces of text, and well, it's pretty random. It's kind of like assembling a bunch of dinosaur bone fragments. Some pieces fit cleanly into cohesive sentences, others are kind of guesses to where they go, and still others you have no idea what to do with. But after going through each and every line, I think there's enough here to give us a deeper understanding of Project Libitina and VM2's simulated world. Let's take a look. Right off the bat, it becomes clear that there are three very distinct writing styles present in the text that Test VM spits out at us. One that appears to be heavily religious, religious, one that's entirely scientific, and a third that's rooted in science but seems to be a bit warmer or more personal. We
Religious
know that this game is big
science
on writing styles and grammar, and so the way that these sentences are worded to me indicates that we aren't just reading text from one person, but instead are reading from 3 different sources. First, the religious writing, probably from a priest-like character. We learned from Yuri in the original DDLC that this was a religious camp that turned into a human experiment prison. We also know that God clearly plays some part of Project Libitina thanks to the testing file at projectlibitina.com. Quote, will you not have as much faith in your personnel as you do in your God? So we've guessed for a while that Project Libitina has religious roots, but what they're worshiping and what their goals are is made more clear from the decoded messages in Test VM. Gradual changes to the scripture class curriculum to incorporate an angel in mortal skin. She will walk the path to ascension and we will follow. We'll ascend and bring salvation to all. May the third eye can only assume that even obstacles or failures are all part of the great plan, even if beyond my comprehension. Should seek purpose. Purpose ignites a will to live, a will to suffer for have died, so that those most worthy will be able to ascend. That first line could
This is definitely a cult. Ascensionism, which Map has talked about before, is cult behavior.
confirms the idea that this is some kind of religious camp. There's a curriculum. People are being taught, which is often a part of cult life, allowing them to essentially brainwash the victims. The writer also has some level of awareness that the world they're in is not all there is. There's a push towards ascension. Wait, I thought we were done with Kanye Quest. But in all seriousness, this religion turned cult seems to sense that there's something above, a higher power, that an angel or chosen one will be able to lead them to a higher state of being. Little do they suspect that it's actually a bunch of sweaty computer programmers watching their every move in a series of cubicles. Whoopsie! But what's really interesting is how they speak about the third eye. Yep, that old chestnut is back.
So the third eye, I'm kind of curious to see where this fits in. Third eye. So we pretty much all know that anyone who's seen MatPat's theories on DDLC knows that the third eye kind of causes people to want to kill people. Like, it's a lust for blood sort of feeling. So, does it just fit in with the game, or is there more to it?
And it's back in a big way. The one line that we've seen so far feels reminiscent of the Christians saying, "The Lord be with you and also with you." It's a sort of greeting or something that you just say to other members of your belief system. Here it seems to be, "May the third eye guide you, help you, save you." All possibilities, but it's clear that the third eye is a religious symbol and a foundation of the faith. The third eye appears to be something that a few are blessed with, but is clearly the key to the ascension that the writer desires. Lastly, we have confirmation that the writer knows about all the deaths that are happening in the cult. His line about people dying so that the others who are worthy can ascend shows that he believes that all of these sacrifices are worth it. So could this priest also be the doctor that we learned about in the test notes from the first game? Quote from there, "Libitina has not yet recovered from the termination of XXXXX and is not expected to do so in the near future. You are choosing to avoid the measures necessary to prevent a repeat scenario, doctor. Will you not have as much faith in your personnel as you do in your God?" Makes sense, right? Willingly testing and killing patients, believing them to not be worthy in the pursuit of the perfect specimen that'll help them achieve the goal of ascension, an angel in mortal skin. My theory is that this mystery character, this priest/doctor doing all this writing, is Renier, the guy that we heard about from the redacted poem found in the original DDLC. In that redacted poem, we see the writer describe Renier's information to be a complete and utter lie. However, Renier himself seems convinced of his methods and is associated with screams of torture. Both Renier and this first character in Test VM seem to believe that their sacrifices are worth it, that in order to ascend to a higher plane, you gotta crack a few eggs. Or, in actuality, selectively breed a bunch of children, sever a bunch of body parts, assemble it all into a giant psychic machine so you can reach your greater computer programmers. That is as reductive as I can make this whole situation. The next group of text that I want to show you gives us a far deeper, more detailed understanding of what exactly is going on inside Project Libitina. Indicates only 80% or less of nutrients and medical supplements are needed to keep the body alive, compared to the non-amputated control. Meters in diameters, so that a 0.5
1.5-meter gap between each body will...
Due to the factual style of the writing, as well as the use of measurements and percentages, this text seems to be a research report. And it reaffirms what Yuri was talking about in Portrait of Markov, cutting off limbs and putting them all together for some purpose. And now we understand. It seems like they're combining body parts of those with strong third eye potential in order to ascend, to reach that higher plane of existence. To them, they're pulling their resources to reach out to their god, their creator, but we know better. They're not wrong about reaching out to their creator, but he ain't some dude hanging out in the clouds. He's a bunch of people chatting it up over Discord. And we already know that for as disgusting and horrible as their tactics are, it's also kind of working. Their experiment will indeed allow Team Salvato to reach back out to them. Think back to what Paula said in her email. I have an idea on how to increase connection stability. Some of the log files indicate attempts of theirs to pull together the access potential of multiple individuals into a single parallel unit. One angel blessed with the ability to communicate with God. The rest of the text from this section gets really dark. Quote,
all of functional reproductive systems. Then we could produce new, potent children with incredible efficiency. And sudden death would be at 9 months each. A total of 36 would reach peak efficiency, with about 1 week per. By age 5, children testing above the threshold will be transferred to Wing A, while all are speculated to improve third eye potency by puberty. The new children are generally obedient, but with the introduction of more unpleasant activities, we should consider tests focusing on each of these emotional responses to determine which adulthood to receive professional training in.
They are actively breeding children to have greater third eye potential, being raised in the facility, and eventually being subject to experiments, or what is probably better described as torture, in order for them to open their third eyes. It's legitimately very scary and very disturbing. If I were to guess, it's here where Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki fit into the story. They're children that were raised as part of that selective breeding child grooming experiment, and it'll be our job in this new game to figure out who is who and help them to wake up. As Monika said in her final monologue, they should, if they remember their time with me in the other worlds, they should remember what I tell them. And now we get to what I think is the most interesting.
Yeah, that does seem really solid. Like, it would make sense that they would have to be around teenage age in this machine. Before, I was thinking they were just gonna be specific characters, no age in particular, but that does seem kind of wrong.
Interesting part of the test VM. This last source seems different. It's still scientific, but it's personal too. Asking and responding to questions, discussing personal opinion and hypotheses rather than just laying out discoveries. I believe this.
Is this the doctor who realized Rainier's information was a lie?
Character is a high-ranking scientist working at the facility of Project Libitina. Here, I'll let it speak for itself.
Beyond the eyes of the public, decades of favorable reputation don't have a third eye struggle to understand what current science tells them. I am disregarding. The only prison is our material world. The gate of the Nexus extends beyond any comprehension of the material world. Name implies death, but of what? Only the material self. Our mission to become free of the material self is distanced from the religion which the Academy was once known to practice. Religion requires faith. This is undeniable truth. The observable changes in physical appearance, however small, already prove this to be more than the usual spiritual nonsense.
Now this tells us a lot. The religious cult is called the Academy, but clearly things have changed in recent times. We're seeing, through the eyes of this character, the transformation of the Academy from an entirely religious venture to a scientific experiment. This view, however, is not accepted by the public. Again, as we read, it's implied that years of reputation have been washed away by their belief in the potential of the third eye, and that those with third eye potential do seem to have some subtle physical difference from normal humans. These lines of text also tell us that the ascension that they're trying to reach, our world, is called the Nexus in their world. And there's even more text coming from this individual, all about a mysterious new figure.
Has become an increasingly scientific endeavor thanks to absolute genius and has made incredible contributions to Project Libitina, despite having no third, have given him the title of Guardian to reflect.
This implies that our writer does indeed have a third eye, and that those without third eye potential are seen as lower class. However, this mystery person that the text mentions, this Guardian, has helped a lot despite not having a third eye. Again, I think that this is them talking about Rainier. Rainier seems to be our main antagonist in this new story, the one who created the third eye theories in the first place and the quote-unquote science to test it all out. But there is still one question left unanswered. Where does Monika fit into all this? She's been established to have a connection with VM2, able to see the horrors that await them because she shares memory with someone inside that virtual machine, but so far I've only mentioned Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki. Well, I purposely didn't group Monika together with the other 3 girls for a specific reason. I don't believe Monika is part of Project Libitina like the others are. Instead, Monika is a nurse. The same nurse, in fact, that wrote the redacted poem that ends up in DDLC.
Monika
Think about it. A
did
nurse
that.
would have access to all the girls, the facility, the areas that she might need to go to in order to save them. But also, that redacted text in the poem leaves the words, "nothing is real," implying that it's been messed with by Monika to let you know that she knows about the simulation. But the real kicker goes all the way back to Paula's email, "Let's Move On." We established in the last email that monitor kernel access is how Monika got her name. It also refers to her level of elevated access in DDLC. Well, in the next paragraph, Paula states, quote, "I'm gonna spin up a read-only hypervisor that we can use to test different ideas like this. The elevation level will be set to monitor adjacent runtime level access. MARLA."
Uh-oh. That's not good.
Marla, the name of our nurse, and it's the name of Virtual Machine 2's Monika variant. That runtime level access, by the way, is important. It means that in this game, this version of Monika isn't going to be all-knowing or all-powerful. She's just a nurse that's scared for these girls. And although she might not know the bigger picture, our Monika does, the one originating from DDLC. And remember, she's running around inside the body of Ive Laster. 2 Monikas, one inside the game, one outside the game. This is even hinted at by another line of text from the scientist in the test VM.
But my third eye shows me 2 of them I can't make sense of.
So now that DDLC
They know. They know. Oh, shoot.
Plus has introduced the
that's not
metaverse,
good.
I think this new game, whatever they decide to call it, has a couple options open for how it might end up playing. First, we might be jumping in and out of the game, using Marla's runtime level access to help Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki inside the new simulation Project Libitina, while using the metaverse desktop to edit, move, and delete files and computer settings with the help of DDLC's Monika posing as Ive, even helping the girls to escape the simulation entirely, just like Monika did. Or there's option 2. Maybe it'll be a perfectly normal game on the surface where you'll have to socially engineer your way to figuring out who is who in these new skins and how to earn their trust without tipping the scales or scaring them away to tell the authorities. Or maybe there's option 3. It's a normal game that shatters into something completely different when you name a character Monika, Yuri, Natsuki, and Sayori. Who knows? There are just lots of different directions to take the idea. Just be on the lookout for any games about human experiments, angels, ascension, or people named Marla. Those will be our first clue. But hey, that's just a theory.
Every day we stray closer to God. Oh. Ugh. No, not the only cans. No. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave you with this lovely picture of Monika's Twitter. And, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, just Monika.